10 square kilometer area. So the settlements became bigger in the early historic period. This is what we call urbanization. And in the internal dynamics were active in the hinterland cities like Urayur, Kanchipuram, Karur and Madurai. In the coastal area, the long distance external dynamics were contributing factors. So these are, and also we have development of ideologies. We have several Brahmi inscription sites, cave shelters often attributed to Jains. They are occurring all along the trade route with a huge cluster around this place of Madurai. So this map shows the important ancient ports of Tamizhagam. We have Arikamedu, Kaveri Pumpattinam, Adagankulam, Korkai and Mussiris or Pattanam. I was involved in the research at the site of Mussiris. The site of Tindis has not been, Tindis or Tondi has not been identified. Similarly, Bekkare, Nelkinda, these sites emerged somewhere around 500 BCE along the coast. Not only here, all along the Indian Ocean, you have these settlements emerging. And we have a lot of evidence for the early historic Indian Ocean exchange. We have Strabo's geography, Periplus Murray Erythraei, Pliny's natural history, Ptolemy's geography, Mussiri's papyrus. So a whole lot of Greek texts, they emerge, and also Tamil texts, Pattinapalai. Why? Now we need to ask a question, why a literature has to be composed on Kaveri Pumpattinam? Why a text has to be composed on Madurai Kanchi? Because these towns are very beautifully described in Sangam literature. Sometimes they are compared to women. And more specifically, they use the term Valam Kedu. So they were very much aware of the concept of wealth. Yamanar Tanda Vinayman Nankalam Ponnodu Vandu Kariyodu Pairum Valam Kedu Musiri Ahananuru Nuti Narpati Unbadavadu Padal. So this Valam Kedu, that is a very important term that they use. And when these poets are amazed by the landscape and the cultural scape around the cities or towns of the Sangam age, and that they have portrayed in the literature. So that constitutes an important element. This is what I wanted to highlight. I mentioned about the history of Afro-Eurasian world. We cannot see Tamizhagam as an exclusive landscape. It was part of the Afro-Eurasian node or trade network, and people were traveling all along. Not only in Tamizhagam, all these areas you find ports. Sometimes we have evidence for Tamil's activity in the ports such as Qusair al-Khadim and Bernike. So we need to look at the history of India or South Asia from a meta level. This is what I call Afro-Eurasian world and connecting all across. Earlier we were looking, we were creating Greater India, looking at India, Southeast Asia interaction, highlighting Indianization. So our theoretical approach is very much influenced by our perspectives. Nowadays, scholars have moved on from Indo-Roman and India, Southeast Asia to Indian Ocean approach, and they have highlighted the importance of looking at things holistically from bird's eye view, from the top. And okay. So this is Puducherry table, one of the earliest maps related to Tamizhagam in India. What they have shown as Tambrabane is actually Sri Lanka. We will come to the trade network. Already I showed you. There were two kinds of processes that were acting in the formation of urbanization. When we talk about urbanization or Nagaramayamakkam, இதற்கான காரணங்கள் என்ன? Why there was urbanization? We always discuss. This is what I said. There were two processes. One is internal dynamic, the formation of Velir to Vendar system emerging, and in the internal area like at this area of Pandya territory, Chera territory, Adiyaman territory and all that, and you get the reference in Ashokan inscription in 3rd century BCE. And these kind of internal dynamics developed in this period, and in this period Tamizhagam was not isolated. It was well connected with the various parts of the Indian Ocean, northern part of India, Southeast Asia and West Asia and Africa and Rome. So that connection is reflected in the coastal area that we call external dynamics. So these monsoon winds facilitated this movement, and if you look at Tamil Nadu's location, South India's location is very strategic in the Indian Ocean. If you want to go from Red Sea to Southeast Asia, it is a long haul voyage. You need to come to the western shores of India and take rest and fill all your requirements and then move. Sometimes the trade was happening in such a way that all these people from the west and east met in this particular area, and that is why southern India became very strategically important, because it hangs like a honeycomb in the Indian Ocean as a launching pad. So naturally you can understand why China is interested in developing their base either in Sri Lanka or Bangladesh, other region, because southern India lies in a strategically important area in the Indian Ocean region. This is exemplified by the evidence in the early period. We have ancient ports like I showed you, Kavarippumpattinam, Arikkamedu, Adagankulam, Korkai, Musiri, Thondi, all appearing in 2300 years ago, 300 BCE approximately. Then you have ports emerging in the medieval period. Then during the colonial period, you travel from Nagapattinam, how many ports? Nagapattinam, Karaikal, Tharangambadi, Parangipettai, and then you have Pondicherry. Then we have other sites like Kolang and other, so many other sites, Padaverkadu, Mylapore. So why all these colonial forces came and settled here? Because southern part of India is in a strategically important position, and you could really control Southeast Asia and many other parts by sitting here. And that is also one of the factors that contributed to the development of Tamil diaspora, and that is a different area of research. I will not discuss that. So this particular map shows that why we have to study Indian history as part of Indian Ocean history, not as exclusive South Asian or this history. A lot of trade networks existed, and we have a lot of evidence. Bernike is one of the important site in Egypt where we have evidence of Tamil merchants, and we have Tamil merchant's name inscribed on a pottery. It is on an amphora. அப்போனா அந்த காலத்திலேயே தமிழர்கள் நிறைய அந்த ரோமானிய மதுவை கொடுத்திருக்கிறார்கள். இது வந்து this is a Roman wine amphora in which there is a Tamil name. It was found in Egypt at Bernike. This name of the person is Puman, Kotra Puman. That is what Airavata Mahadevan has read. And then 7.5 kilo pepper was found in Egypt, which they say it must have gone from ancient Tamizhagam, then Indian pottery. So now you can understand why archaeology is important, because we get authentic evidence related to the migration of movement of Tamils and other traders in the ancient period. This is the port of Arikkamedu excavated by wheelers. You have a lot of Roman coins occurring, and higher concentration is something near Coimbatore. And mainly we can understand this particular concentration when we look at Ahananuru 149 poem, how the Romans came here and they gave their gold coins and other metal, and then they took pepper and other spices. This is amphora. Yavanar Nankalam Tanda Tankamal Theral, Purananuru 56வது பாடல். So this says that how Pandyan king was enjoying this wine. We get the actual amphora sherd. We have found at several sites, Karur, Pattanam, Arikkamedu, Adagankulam. So this whatever represented in the literature can be proved by looking at archaeological evidence. And this is roulated ware, another pottery. Earlier scholars were thinking it was made in Rome. Normally they were using in the logic, fine is foreign, crude is local. But later on, when they did an XRD analysis, they found it was made from the clay of Chandragedugar or near Bengal. There was another important network connecting Bengal to South India. So South India was having two functions. One is supplying the bulk spices, mainly from the Western Ghats. Second, South India was acting as a transshipment locus for people who are coming from China, Bengal, Southeast Asia. They were meeting, and that is why Sri Lanka is also very strategically important. These are the ports. Now we will move on to some of the select ports and the material culture you are finding. What is an urban center? Mortimer Wheeler, who has excavated Arikkamedu, So this was the picture of Archimedu when Wheeler excavated. You find a lot of brick architecture. We find the use of brick architecture in Tamil Nadu, in Tamizhagam around 300 BCE onwards, and you get a lot of materials here. Brick architecture in this way. People started building structure using brick around 300 BCE or little earlier. They were using roof tile. So basically they are shifting to a different kind of settlement pattern, square and rectangle, and the size of the brick were invariably 40 to 42 centimeter, which is very much similar to 2 span or 1 muram, what we call. So that is why it is 40 to 42 centimeter. And then you find lot of brick architecture. This Roman wine amphora, Greek wine amphora. Interestingly, we find more Greek wine amphora in Archimedu. One scholar has suggested Greek wine was made of salt water. That is why we were finding a lot of Greek amphora. This could be a reason that the people who are living at Archimedu, they preferred the Greek amphora. This was one interpretation, or the Greek-based trade was very dominant in Archimedu. These are all just conjecture based on the material remained. This one is actually a Roman wine amphora. We are finding at Archimedu ring bell and shell bangle pieces and these kind of seal. This seal shows a chariot and Tamil Brahmi inscription. So that is very important finding. Gold ornament, glass beads. So they are all these towns, urban centers acted as a kind of special economic zones, like what you have in Noida or Moradabad area. These centers like Archimedu and Kaveri Pumpatinam, there people were assembling lot of artifacts. They could easily get raw material. And these urban centers were acting as special economic zones. We have evidence of textile production, copper working, gold working, shell bangle working, stone ornament working. Lot of material you are finding. Now we will go to Pattanam. This site is identified with Musaris. I will finish within 5 minutes. This is a cultural chronology. This is how an archaeological site looks. So we have about 3-meter deposit where we are minutely excavating and removing all the objects and sieving the soil, collecting evidence. This particular ceramic, so these kind of small ceramic sherd can tell a lot of story about the connectivity. This one is not Indian. This comes from West Asia, probably from Persia or from the region of Iraq. So this is known as turquoise glazed pottery. This occurs at Pattanam, and more of that. This one has bitumen coating. This is known as torpedo jar. This is also of West Asian origin. So clearly it shows that we have reference to Yavanas in Tamil literature a lot. So Yavanar Irkai is there. So these people were coming to Tamil Nadu, and in some of the areas they were settling. You find these kind of torpedo jars, Roman amphora, and these potteries are very distinct in terms of their mineral content as well as their shape. And this one is Terra Sigillata. It is an Italian pottery or Eastern Mediterranean pottery, and you can look at the symbol. It is very typical. So this has been found in Tamil Nadu, indicating the connectivity. Then you have rouletted ware, and so these kind of precious stones. People were producing these ornaments, and they were exporting glass beads and chips. Even from the excavations, we have recovered even the small fragments. These were all manufacturing waste. So we recover everything and try to understand. This material is cornelian. It is not available in South India. It comes from Gujarat. Now you can understand how this raw material and even these craftsmen were moving about 2000 years ago. This one is cameo blank. So people were producing these blank and they were exporting. So basically these traders were moving across the Indian Ocean. They were exporting, and also we have evidence for ivory trade. And if you look at literature as Palai theme, you can see separation as frequently discussed. And one of the theme is that hero moves away long distance to earn wealth. So that perfectly matches with the evidence that we have here. Glass material, iron objects and coins. Coins were introduced in this period. This is a Chera coin. Before that we don't have any evidence for coinage. lead has no source, probably it came from Roman Empire. This is a Chera coin and gold working. You can see that particular ear ornament, which is in the shape of a Roman wine amphora. That means this design is not local. Similarly, we find evidence of script, and this one is late Chinese ceramics. I will skip. And also we excavated a boat made of single log of wood, and it was a Padagu Turai or jetty. Like, we have a beautiful description in Pattinapalai which says the boats in the quay at Kaveri Pumbattinam resembled the horse stable where horses were tied. So that kind of pose we are finding. This has been dated. We get a brick architecture. This is the case with all the urban settlements in the early historic period, and brick architecture. So they are moving to a square rectangular pattern. If you look at the Neolithic settlements, in the early Iron Age, settlements were circular in shape, sometimes rectangle. They were all closed because they kept their cattle in the middle and they were living around. But in this period, it was a kind of exchange. They had to exchange it through face to face. So they are shifting for a different kind of settlement pattern. You find this triple grooved roof type. This is common all over India, found in Sri Lanka, also found in Southeast Asian side. So you see some kind of development, roof tile, and this was probably a toilet-like feature at Pattanam. And this is frankincense. This was recovered there at Pattanam. And in addition to that, we also found a lot of organic material: teak, anjali, cherata, which is coconut shell, kurumalagu, pepper, and grape seeds. Lot of organic materials. There also nelika, manga, chira, cherupairu, pachapairu, vendaka. All these materials we recovered from the waterlogged condition. And also interestingly, this was an intaglio that was excavated at Pattanam. This is again a Roman god of fortune. So you can see how these ideas were moving across in this period. You get very rich material culture, beads and all that. This one is an intaglio with a lion and coins, and this is another beautiful pendant in the form of an axe. You can see this, see how these people were very adept. And also we found thin zari at the site of Pattanam, which was very thin, and they were using gold in the textile. So we don't have any direct evidence for textile from this side. From Kodumanal they have found, because textile can be preserved if it is sometime attached to copper objects. So you get diverse kinds of material from these excavations. And they clearly tell how these settlements were emerging. I will quickly skip through settlement patterns. We have categorized the settlement into regional center, settlements of Vendar, Velir, and rural areas, because we have excavated all kinds of sites. I will not go into the classification of the settlements. Interestingly, sometimes the gold from these trade went into the megalithic burial. If you go to Paris, you can see this in the Musée Guimet. Earlier I said Louvre Museum, not Louvre, it is Musée Guimet. They have kept the gold objects from Pondicherry excavation. There are so many megalithic burial sites. In addition to that, we also get lapis lazuli, which has its source in Afghanistan, in the Badakhshan region. You get a lot of gold in the megalithic burial. So clearly we understand the connectivity between these settlements. We have evidence for connections, and also a lot of traders are mentioned in the Brahmi inscriptions. We have evidence of womeners, the salt traders moving across, and lot of evidence for internal trade has been found. Similarly, connection with Sri Lanka, connection with Southeast Asia. We get a lot of material. These are the commodities of trade: pepper, spices, and agencies. Here we have evidence of traders moving across the Indian region. This is Chatan, found at Qusair al-Qadim in Egypt. Panay Ori, two Tamil names found in two pots in Qusair al-Qadim in Egypt. This is Nandai Kiran. Probably his name was Kannandai Kiran. This was found in Oman. So you can see how people were traveling. This is Perum Patankal. This was found at Thailand, datable to 2nd, 3rd century. So this clearly shows how early Tamil traders were moving across. This kind of connectivity, even if you look at Pattinapalai and other texts, it clearly shows that how people were assembled at Kaveri Pumbuttinam. Silapadigaram is very more clear about it. So in actually we have these people moving across the Indian Ocean, and especially the southern part of India and Tamizhagam had a key role to play in the maritime trade right from the ancient time down to the modern time. And when we look at all these evidences, we understand how these processes were acting upon the Indian Tamizhagam and the Indian Ocean region, and the Indian Ocean connection was one important factor why you are finding more material culture. If you travel further east coast in Andhra, we don't find this much imported ceramics. You find a lot of material concentration in Gujarat. Gujarat was one major area connecting the entire northern India. But whereas in the ancient Tamizhagam, you have important ports occurring on both the coasts, Tamil Nadu and Kerala, with a lot of material culture. And this was a region where people from the different parts of Indian Ocean, they had assembled. And similarly, Tamil traders, they went. And also we have Prakrit inscription. We have people from other parts of India visiting. We have Singhala Prakrit inscription. So clearly it was a kind of interactions of cultures and traders in the Indian region, ocean region happening in ancient Tamizhagam, for which we get a lot of material evidence besides the literature. Thank you. So I took more time or? Yes.
Sir, you have talked about the trade relations. Can you also talk about the religious ideas have been going through the Indian Ocean from South India to the Southeast Asia?
So in the early period, there are certain legends of Agastya story prevalent in South India. They attribute in Southeast Asia. They attribute, that is one, and we have we have evidence of this Jain cave shelters with rock beds all across South India. So that is one aspect, and we have evidence of Buddhism from Kaveri Pumbuttinam, but that is slightly later. At Kaveri Pumbuttinam, they have excavated a Buddha Vihara. Similarly, at Kanchipuram also, they have done very minimal excavation. One of the problem is many of these towns are occupied by people even today. Even today, people live in the old settlements, so it is very difficult to excavate. Only in some areas we can excavate and understand the ancient township. So we have these kind of evidences, like the story of Agastya, but we don't know the chronology of that. If you want to look into material culture, we can clearly say that this Buddha Vihara found at Kaveri Pumbuttinam and Kanchipuram, and this Jain rock shelters with which are attributed to Jain. Some people say they are Shramanas, and they are found all over. But interestingly, we have Prakrit names also occurring in many of the Tamil Brahmi inscriptions on pottery. So that also clearly suggests connection with various other parts of India, northern India, and also with Sri Lanka. We have punch mark coins, they are found. So they show clearly the connectivity with different parts of India. Similarly, Shatavahana coins have been found in Southeast Asia, and also, so we have evidence of these people moving across. Already I mentioned about the term Vangam, Banka, and Padagar, Prahu. So that also suggests clearly the connectivity. As Mr. Rajendran IAS pointed out, that not everything has been written. Many of our history is unwritten. We have to really extract information from bits and pieces of evidence that is available.
உங்களுடைய சிறப்புரை கேட்ட பின் நிற்கத்தக கசடரா கத்தமிழ் நிற்க தக உங்கள் சிறப்புரை கேட்டபின் நாங்கள் எல்லாருமே அதை சிறப்பாக கடைபிடிக்கணும்.
நன்றி, தேங்க்யூ. அதாவது the heritage management and museum construction, that is an area we need to concentrate. Even when we talk about Choda history, people always take up Ponniyin Selvan. So there is something we should do. I would say this is a failure of historians to write history or develop museum in such a way to the public. As Mr. Rajendran IAS also pointed out, how people are interested in those characters which are more, attractive. More a player. I think maybe I would also suggest. So suppose if you want to show the Sangam age history, there is so much of information. Sometimes we keep giving lecture. Can you point out one museum in Tamil Nadu where you enter and spend half an hour, you get an understanding? No. So somehow we failed to present a beautiful narrative of our own cultures. We attract a lot of tourists because people say that Mahabalipuram monuments attracted maximum number of tourists. But we need to do more in terms of creating awareness about our heritage and also promoting and mainly heritage education. Know how to educate. Even this freedom history, it is not there because sometimes people do not want to read these research papers which we write for our promotion in English or in journal, and people want something different. That is where I think our museums should be the focus, where people, and also